I'm so happy for you, Annie LaFay exclaimed. Although I can't say I'm surprised. We all saw it coming. She listened for a moment to her brother on the other end. Yeah, I knew you guys belonged together from the moment I met her. I have a sixth sense about these things, you know. Jen is an awesome person. I'm really happy for you, Zach. Yeah, you too. 'Kay, bye. She hung up the phone and looked at it for a few seconds. Zach and Jen had just moved in together. Even though they'd only been dating for 2.5 months, Annie didn't think they were moving too fast. In fact, she was surprised it had taken them this long. Annie smiled inwardly when she thought of Jen. She loved her like a sister and was very excited for them. Zach deserved to be happy, and Jen could give him that happiness. Slowly, however, that inner smile faded, and Annie suddenly realized something. Now that Zach had a girlfriend, that meant that she, Annie LaFay, would be the only single person at all the holiday parties this year. I don't like being single. I just haven't found the right one yet, she thought to herself, as thoughts of having to explain to everyone why she wasn't dating filled her mind. Excuses like, I'm too busy to date, or I don't need a relationship right now, it will distract me from my schooling, would be how she explained her solitary existence. The truth was that dating was hard for her. She had only had a couple steady boyfriends in her 24 years of life, and her last real relationship had ended almost 2 years ago. She could just hear the endless chatter of well-meaning relatives and old high school buddies telling her to get back in the saddle, or worse, trying to set her up on a blind date. Annie opened the door to the student housing at Penn State University. She quickly made her way up the stairs, her brown hair bouncing. Stopping at her room, she unlocked the door and went in. It was small and quaint, and just right for Annie. She waved at her roommate, Roxanne, who, besides being in the medical field like Annie, was her polar opposite. She didn't talk much, unless it was about the horrors of humanity, and she didn't like Annie to talk to her either. She was a very different person, who spent most of her time on her laptop or at the bar down the street where she worked. It bothered Annie at first, not being able to talk to her roommate about everything that was going on in her life. But despite their differences, she had come to really like Roxy. Annie was becoming more used to the silence now. She herself was usually very talkative. In fact, some might say a little too much. But being at the university had helped her with that. She no longer felt obligated to strike up a conversation with every person she saw. She did, however, still ramble when she got nervous. Some habits were harder to kick than others. Annie kicked off her shoes, plopped on her bed, and stared at the ceiling, dreading the coming month. Thanksgiving was only 2 weeks away. She shook her head irritably. She used to love Thanksgiving, but now it seemed like the pressure to have a boyfriend was the central part of it. She couldn't remember exactly when this pressure had begun, but she knew it had only gotten worse with time. By now, most of her high school friends from her hometown in rural Ohio were either in long-term relationships or married. That was one thing about living in a small town. Everyone always knew who was dating who, and who was not dating at all. Annie sighed. Maybe it won't be that bad, she thought. Maybe with Zach and Jen's new relationship still on the front pages of people's minds, they'll just sort of forget about me. It was a vain hope, she knew, because even if everyone in the entire town forgot about Annie, she knew one person who would not, her dear Aunt Gabby. Annie smiled at the thought of her. She picked up her phone and scrolled to the number. After only 2 rings, she heard the sweet old voice on the other end. Hello? Hey, Aunt Gabby. How's it going? Oh, hey, darlin'. I'm fine, just peeling some apples. What are you up to? Just got done with classes for the day. Thought I'd call and see how you're doing. I hate that you're there all alone. Oh, sweetie, don't worry about me. Carmen is here and she keeps me company. Annie smiled at the thought of Aunt Gabby's orange and white cat sitting on the porch meowing at everything she said. I'm glad to hear that, she giggled. You're still planning on being here for Thanksgiving, aren't you, honey? Aunt Gabby asked. Yes, ma'am, Annie replied. I wouldn't miss it.
To keep listening to this audiobook, I've left you a link in the description so you can do it. at no cost thanks to Audible's 30-day free trial.